Before we dive in, viewer discretion is advised. This content is for entertainment purposes.
What happens when a titan of the silver screen is pitted against a television host who mistakes provocation for commentary? Today, we dissect the on-air collision that sent Kate Winslet walking from the stage and left Joy Behar in the stunning aftermath. This is a chronicle of professional decorum, of personal honor, and the brutal spectacle that erupts when those boundaries are obliterated before a live audience. Subscribe now and cast your own verdict on this televised trial. From the moment Kate Winslet stepped onto the View's stage, the atmosphere was charged, crackling with an unseen energy. She was there on the heels of yet another lauded performance, expecting a standard victory lap. What no one could foresee was the breathtaking speed of the coming derailment. "Welcome back to The View, everyone," Whoopi Goldberg announced, her smile a familiar comfort. "We're here with the phenomenal Kate Winslet, who is headlining what critics are heralding as the performance of her career." Kate assumed her seat, cloaked in that effortless poise that had made her a global icon. "Thank you so much for having me, Whoopi. It is truly a pleasure to be here." The opening moments unfolded by the book. Sarah Haynes posed thoughtful questions about Kate's artistic process, and Sunny Hostin commended the film's powerful social relevance. Kate was a master, speaking of her craft with the very passion that had captured her an Academy Award. But then, from across the table, Joy Behar leaned forward. That notorious smirk, a harbinger of chaos known to all loyal viewers, began to form. "So, Kate," Joy began, her voice a syrupy poison, "I must raise an issue that has been troubling me. You have graced Hollywood for, 30 years now? And yet you continue to pursue these youthful, romantic narratives. Don't you believe it's time to accept that those chapters are closed?" The studio fell into a deafening silence. Kate's smile faltered, a crack in the perfect facade, before she regained her composure. "I'm sorry, Joy, but I'm not certain I understand your implication." "Oh, please," Joy scoffed, waving a hand as if swatting away a fly. "Time waits for no one. Shouldn't you be transitioning to roles more appropriate for your station? Playing mothers, perhaps grandmothers, instead of vying for parts against actresses half your age?" Whoopi shifted, a silent alarm ringing in her eyes, sensing the interview had taken a dark and hostile turn. "Joy, I think." No, let me land my point," Joy cut in, her voice sharpening like a blade. "I am simply giving voice to what the world is thinking. There is an air of desperation when older actresses cling to roles meant for women in their 20s and 30s. It is not a flattering portrait, Kate." The color vanished from Kate's face, but her voice held, a fortress against the assault. "Joy, I believe there has been a profound misunderstanding. The character I portray is, in fact, a woman in her 40s, navigating intensely adult conflicts. This is not about age, it is about telling stories with substance." A harsh, dismissive laugh erupted from Joy. "Stories with substance? Oh, spare me. You are playing dress-up, pretending to be a version of yourself that no longer exists. That is the actor's trade, I comprehend that. But there is a vast gulf between acting and utter delusion." "Delusion?" Kate echoed, the word a ghost on her lips. The hurt in her eyes was a raw, open wound. "Joy, that is enough," Whoopi commanded, her tone now iron. But Joy was relentless. "Look, I am not attempting to be vicious," Joy claimed, her very tone a contradiction. "I am simply being truthful. Hollywood has a sickness, it refuses to permit women to age with dignity. And when an artist of your stature continues to accept these unsuitable parts, you are feeding the disease." Kate inhaled deeply, a shaky, controlled breath, her hands clenching into fists in her lap. "I must say, Joy, I am utterly floored by this entire line of attack. I had arrived to dissect a film, a narrative woven with threads of resilience, identity, and the delicate tapestry of human connection. The age of my character, I argued, was a mere footnote, utterly inconsequential to the story being told. But was it? But Joy, a predator sensing a weakness, pressed forward. Because from my vantage point, this appears to be yet another chapter in Hollywood's grand deception, a fantasy peddled to the masses that women past 40 can still command the spotlight as leading ladies. It lacks realism? Kate. The lens, an unblinking eye, captured every tremor, every flicker of disbelief that danced across Kate's features as she absorbed the unfolding ambush. Here she stood, a titan of her craft, one of the most celebrated actresses of her time, being informed by a television host that her vintage rendered her obsolete for the very job she had mastered. "Joy," Kate began, the words measured, her British accent sharpening as it always did when the emotional stakes were raised. "I find I must ask you something. Would this line of questioning ever be directed at a male actor? Would you dare ask George Clooney or Brad Pitt if they've aged out of romantic consideration?" Joy scoffed, a sound of pure dismissal. "That is a world away from this, and you know it." "How, precisely, is it different?" Kate countered, her body inching forward, closing the space between them. "Explain the difference, Joy. Men and women age on different trajectories. Men acquire distinction. We are simply left with age. That is the cold, hard truth of it." An absolute hush fell over the studio, so profound you could have heard a tear fall. Behind the cameras, the crew stood like statues, their movements arrested, utterly captivated by the slow-motion train wreck before them. Kate's gaze locked onto Joy, a long, inscrutable moment of silence. When she finally broke the stillness, her voice was a sheath of iron control, barely concealing the inferno within. "That is, without question, the most archaic and sexist pronouncement I have been subjected to in a great many years. And to hear it from the mouth of another woman, it is a particular kind of disappointment." "Oh, spare me," Joy retorted, her eyes rolling in theatrical disdain. "Do not begin a lecture on sexism. I was fighting on that battlefield before you were even born." "Then why do you now carry the enemy's banner?" Kate fired back, the first cracks appearing in her formidable composure. "Why are you positioned here, telling me that my worth as an artist has a predetermined expiration date? Why are you reducing my 3 decades of dedication to this craft to a question of whether I appear young enough for public consumption?" Joy's face bloomed with a sudden, hot crimson. "I never uttered a word about desirability. I am speaking of realism." "No, Joy," Kate corrected, her voice now escalating, gaining power. "You are speaking of ageism, and you are speaking of sexism, and you are broadcasting it across the nation, while I am sitting in this very chair." The atmosphere in the room was now so charged it felt physically dense, a palpable weight on the air. Whoopi's eyes darted between her embattled colleague and her guest, a desperate search for a way to de-escalate the catastrophic engagement. "You know what?" Joy declared, her hands thrown up in a gesture of finality. "If you are incapable of handling candid criticism regarding your career path, perhaps you should refrain from participating in interviews." Kate's eyes widened, a portrait of sheer disbelief. "Honest criticism? Joy, you have dedicated the past 10 minutes to a relentless personal and professional assault, founded on absolutely nothing. This is not criticism. This is an act of cruelty." "Cruelty?" Joy's laugh was a bitter, jagged thing. "Oh, that is a rich accusation from someone encased in a fortress of privilege. You find a dose of honest feedback cruel? I suggest you try surviving in the world the rest of us inhabit." "Sweetheart." Kate's jaw went slack at the sheer condescension of the word. "Sweetheart? Did you actually just call me sweetheart?" "Yes, I did," Joy snapped back, defiant. "Because you are behaving like a coddled child who is unable to face reality." The other hosts appeared physically ill. Sarah Haynes made a move to intercede. "Perhaps we should—" "No." Kate's voice was firm, her hand raised to halt the rescue attempt. "I want to hear this out, Joy. Please, enlighten me. What profound truth do you believe you are dispensing here?" Joy leaned back, a smug satisfaction settling on her face. "The truth is that Hollywood is pathologically fixated on youth, and rather than challenge that toxic system, you are its willing enabler. You are seizing roles that rightfully belong to younger actresses, women who could bring a genuine authenticity to these characters." "Taking roles away?" Kate repeated, the words laced with incredulity. "Joy, do you even comprehend the mechanics of casting in this industry? Do you harbor the fantasy that I am out there, a thief in the night, pilfering scripts from the hands of 25-year-olds? Is that the crime you accuse me of?" "I believe," Joy retorted, her words precise and sharp, "that you are making choices that sustain a fundamentally toxic system. And when that fact is presented, you retreat behind cries of sexism instead of accepting your role in it." Kate's legendary poise was fracturing before their very eyes. "Let me be certain I understand this. You are proposing that I, as a woman, am personally accountable for the ageism of Hollywood merely because I continue to work?" "I am proposing," Joy countered. That you could leverage your immense platform to champion genuine representation, rather than simply accepting whichever role offers the highest price. The accusation hung in the studio air, a palpable poisonous fog. Kate could only stare at Joy, her expression a battleground of raw disbelief and a slowly erupting fury. Whichever role offers the highest price. Kate's voice dropped to a dangerously calm level. Joy, do you have any mortal concept of what you are saying? I am aware that you are not in a state of financial distress. Joy fired back. Then why not exercise more discretion? Why not relinquish some roles for the actresses who genuinely depend on them? Whoopi, at last, found an opening. Joy, I truly feel we should. No. Whoopi, Kate commanded, her gaze locked on Joy like a predator. I intend to see this through. Joy, given that you seem to possess such encyclopedic knowledge of my career choices, allow me to offer you an education, the very film we are here to promote today. I took a substantial reduction in my fee to bring it to life, because I had faith in the story. Its director is a first-time female filmmaker, and fully one-half of the crew was comprised of women under the age of 30. But please, enlighten me further on how my actions are a detriment to other women. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Joy's face, but she held her ground. One film cannot absolve decades of questionable choices. Questionable choices. The power in Kate's voice began to build, each word resonating with more force. Joy. I have poured my entire career into projects that test me as an artist and give voice to vital narratives. I have made it a point to work with female directors, to support independent cinema, and to use what little influence I hold to open doors for others. What, precisely, is your contribution? I don't have to defend my career to you, Joy snapped, the facade cracking. No, but you seem utterly convinced that I must defend mine to you, Kate replied, her logic a closing trap. You have dedicated this entire interview to a relentless assault on my age, my decisions, and my character. For what purpose? What is the grand objective here? A flush was creeping up Joy's neck, her composure visibly fraying with each passing second. The objective is that someone must be willing to have these conversations. Someone has to call out the hypocrisy. What hypocrisy? Kate demanded, her voice cutting through the tension. I beg you, explain to me where the hypocrisy lies, in an actress continuing to act. The hypocrisy, Joy declared, is in pretending that age is not a factor when it so obviously is. Joy continued, you can no longer portray a college student, Kate. It is time to accept that. A short, bitter laugh escaped Kate's lips. A college student? Joy. When was the last time you actually viewed one of my films? I ask because it has been over 20 years since I have played a college student. You know what I mean, Joy said with a dismissive wave. No, Kate replied, her tone cold and final. I truly do not. Because every single thing you have uttered today has been erected on a foundation of assumption and cliché, not on a single shred of fact. You haven't inquired about my craft, my preparation, or the themes this film explores. You have simply launched a personal attack. A shift occurred in the arena. The studio audience, until now a silent witness, began to murmur the unmistakable sound of a crowd turning, of discomfort finding its voice. I am not attacking you, Joy insisted, though the words lacked conviction. I am having a real conversation about real issues. Real issues? Kate's voice rose, a crescendo of righteous anger. Joy, the only real issue here is that you invited me to your show on the false premise of discussing my work. And instead, you have used this entire time in a deliberate attempt to tear me down. That isn't journalism. That isn't entertainment. That is simply cruelty for its own sake. Mean-spirited? The word hung in the air, a challenge thrown down. Joy, ever the seasoned brawler, parried with a dismissive scoff. You're far too sensitive. This is the arena of interviews. But Kate, refusing to be cornered, delivered a sharp, decisive counter. No, Joy. This is not the arena. This is something else entirely. This is the playbook of a bully, Kate retorted, her words a rapid-fire succession of accusations. Condescending, dismissive, and utterly rude from the very first bell. The blow landed. A flash of pure fury ignited in Joy's eyes. Excuse me, she hissed, the venom barely contained. Did you just label me a bully? If the shoe fits, Kate shot back, the words delivered with the cold precision of a seasoned duelist. And with that, the delicate truce shattered. The tension in the studio crackled, stretched to its absolute breaking point as a crimson tide washed over Joy's face, her voice tightening into a high, piercing shriek. "You have some nerve," Joy sputtered, trying to reclaim the narrative. "To come onto my stage and insult me." But Kate, with a simple, calculated lift of an eyebrow, questioned the very foundation of Joy's claim. "Your show? I was under the impression this was the View, not the Joy Behar spectacle. And this isn't an insult, Joy. It's a response to your conduct." "My conduct has been perfectly professional," Joy protested, a defense built on sand. "Professional?" Kate's voice dripped with sheer disbelief. "Joy, you opened the salvo by calling me sweetheart. You then questioned my intellect, attacked my career, and implied I was a relic past my prime. In what universe is that considered professional?" Around the table, a palpable wave of discomfort washed over the other hosts. They were now unwilling spectators in a gladiatorial combat they could not stop. Sonny Hostin, ever the diplomat, attempted to raise a white flag. "Perhaps we could—" "No," Kate commanded, her voice slicing through the peace offering like a guillotine. "I want to see this through, Joy. I arrived today, eager to discuss a project that I hold dear. Instead, I have been subjected to what can only be described as a public execution of my character. Why? What was my crime to warrant this treatment?" Joy's response was immediate, unthinking, and in its immediacy, it revealed everything. "You did nothing?" she stated flatly. "This is simply the nature of the beast. If you can't endure the fire, you stay out of the studio." Kate could only stare, the sheer, unvarnished cynicism of the statement washing over her in amazement. "So this was by design," Kate breathed, the pieces clicking into place. "You deliberately orchestrated this gauntlet." "I set out to have an honest conversation," Joy replied, her tone righteous. "If that truth made you uncomfortable, that is hardly my concern." "An honest conversation?" Kate's voice was rising again, laced with scorn. "Joy, there hasn't been a single honest moment here. You've been cruel, unprofessional, and frankly, it has been a mortifying performance to witness." "Mortifying to witness?" Joy's voice ascended to a new, piercing octave. "You're the one having a complete breakdown on live television because you can't handle a few tough questions." The accusation was a spark on gasoline. Kate's eyes ignited with a righteous fury. "Tough questions, Joy? Inquiries about my process, my inspiration, or my collaboration with the director? Those would be tough questions. What you have executed is a personal onslaught disguised as an interview." "Oh, please," Joy scoffed, a flick of her wrist dismissing the entire argument. "You Hollywood types are all cut from the same cloth. You expect universal adulation, a chorus of praise from all who enter your orbit. Kiss my feet?" Kate's voice dropped to a lethally quiet register, a sound more terrifying than any shout. "Joy, I expected basic human decency. I expected the simple courtesy you would afford any other guest. Clearly, that was asking for the impossible." Joy leaned in, a predator sensing weakness. "You know what your problem is, Kate? You've been insulated by yes-men for so long, you can't handle a voice that doesn't worship you." The accusation hung in the air. "My problem?" Suddenly, Kate was on her feet, the scrape of her chair, a shriek of finality. "My problem," she declared, looking down at her antagonist, "is sitting directly across from me, a monument to hostility and condescension from the moment this began." "Sit down," Joy commanded, a desperate lunge for control. "We are not finished." Kate looked down, her expression one of cold fury. "Oh, we are absolutely finished. I cannot fathom what kind of spectacle you believe you're running, Joy. But this isn't journalism. It isn't entertainment. It is cruelty for cruelty's sake. You're being ridiculous." Joy snapped, her final defense crumbling. "This is the exact prima donna behavior I was anticipating." "Prima donna behavior?" Kate's voice, now powerful and controlled, filled the silent studio. "Joy, I have sat here for 20 agonizing minutes while you have systematically insulted my age, my career, my intelligence, and my very character. My response has been measured with a grace you've done nothing to earn. If defending my own name brands me a diva, then it is a title I will wear with pride." In the background, a desperate whoopee rises, A referee trying to halt a match that has already spiraled into a brawl. Whoopi's plea for calm. Ladies, let us find our breath is instantly cut down. No, Whoopi. Kate counters, her gaze locked on Joy like a predator on its prey. Let the record show precisely what has transpired. I arrived here today, an invited guest, prepared to speak of my craft. Instead, I walked into an ambush, orchestrated by a host with a clear and personal vendetta. At that, Joy erupts from her chair, a figure of pure indignation. A personal vendetta? You believe this is born of personal animus, do you? The challenge hangs in the air, because no other reason could possibly explain this. Treatment of a guest. What is the source of this, Joy? What have I done to you? The admission comes, a confession laced with escalating fury. You've done nothing to me personally, but it's high time someone held your kind to account. Your kind? Kate's eyebrows arch in disbelief. And who, precisely, are my kind, Joy? The answer is delivered like venom. The entitled celebrity class, who believe themselves untouchable. A slow shake of the head from Kate, a picture of profound disbelief. This was never criticism, Joy. This was a character assassination. That you cannot distinguish between the two. It speaks volumes about who you are. The words strike a nerve. My character? The retort is a near shout. You know nothing of my character. But Kate's reply is delivered with a chilling calm. Oh, I know enough. I know you believe it is acceptable to publicly humiliate a guest on a national stage. I know you consider ageism and sexism to be legitimate tools of your trade. And I know that when confronted, your instinct is not to reflect, but to attack, devoid of any shred of professionalism or basic human decency. The stage has descended into pure bedlam. Behind the cameras, producers signal wildly, their silent pleas lost in the storm. The other hosts are frozen, monuments of horror. Joy's face is a mask of crimson fury. How dare you preach to me of professionalism? Joy seethes. I was a fixture in this industry before anyone knew your name. The counter is delivered with surgical precision. Then you, of all people, should know better. Longevity is no shield for malice, Joy. In fact, it only makes your conduct more egregious. And then, the snap. Get out. Joy's voice is a raw, guttural scream. Just, get out. A moment of silence as Kate absorbs the final, desperate command. Then, a deliberate motion as she begins to unclip her microphone. You know what, Joy? You are 100% correct. I cannot be a part of this. I cannot sit here and witness a grown woman completely unravel simply because her own unprofessionalism was pointed out. I am not unraveling, Joy shrieks, a perfect, tragic confirmation of the accusation. But Kate is already addressing a higher court, the millions watching from home. This entire, sordid affair will be seen by countless eyes. She places the microphone on the desk with the finality of a gavel, and they will see the real you, Joy. They will see that when challenged, you resort to hostility and abuse. The immediate, shouted denial rings hollow. I am not abusive. Kate's gaze sweeps the studio, finding the unblinking red eyes of the cameras. To everyone watching, I must offer my sincerest apologies. You came here for a conversation about art, about the stories we tell, about the creative journey. And instead, you were made witness to something profoundly ugly. For that, you are not to blame, and it is not what you deserved. Her attention then pivots, for the last time, back to the source of the implosion. And Joy, I truly hope you find the help that you so clearly require. This is not normal behavior, it is not professional, and it is not acceptable. As Kate turns to leave, the final shriek echoes. Don't you dare try to analyze me. She pauses at the precipice of the stage, turning back one last time. This isn't analysis, Joy. It is mere observation. I am only stating what the entire world can now see. You have lost control. I am in complete control, she bellowed, a statement so divorced from reality it became the tragic punchline of the whole affair. Kate's final quiet reply was heavy with pity. No, Joy, you're really, truly not. And with that final, devastating truth, Kate Winslet turned and walked away from the wreckage of the set, leaving in her wake a silent, stunned audience and a host still screaming into the void at her departing back. Whoopi, bless her, tried to salvage the unsalvageable. We'll be right back after this commercial break. she announced, but her voice was a trembling ruin, a promise of order in the heart of chaos. Yet the cameras, relentless and unforgiving, refused to look away, capturing the haunting spectacle of Joy lost in a storm of her own making. It was undeniable. A line had been crossed that could never be uncrossed. A pillar of the acting community, a respected artist, had been driven to the very precipice of her composure by a host who had sacrificed basic humanity on the altar of provocation. This moment would be etched into the annals of live television, not for the film it was meant to herald, but as the ultimate cautionary tale, a perfect, tragic snapshot of what occurs when dignified professionalism collides with its unhinged, chaotic opposite. And now, the judgment falls to you. Was Kate's departure an act of ultimate self-respect, or should she have endured the onslaught to reclaim the narrative? The debate rages on, and its next chapter will be written in the comments below.